Well, welcome to There's That. We are in episode 1 of a new series, just a series of conversations that we want to have around topics that would be really easy to avoid, but ones that we know we need to have. My name is Gina McLean, and I'm excited that you're here with us. And I have my amazing co-host with me, really probably the better part of these conversations, Cindy Fiala. Cindy, can you say hi?
Hey guys, we're so excited to have you here, and thank you so much for that, Gina. You're always so sweet. I don't know if there's better or anything. We are just who we are, and we're excited to be here. We have a really, we were just talking before we started our conversation, how ironic the timing is of this particular conversation. As we record this, it's the week that some really important news has come out, and some incredible things have happened, and we're going to talk about that today. But we're so excited. We're having a discussion today about diversity in ministry, diversity in our lives and in the world and our communities, all those things. And so today we've invited 2 of our friends from our next gen world to join us today. And so, man, I'd love to we have Phyllis and Paula with us. And so I'm just going to open it up. Phyllis, why don't you start first and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at, and what you do, and whatever else you want to tell us, because there's that.
Sounds good. Hi, I'm Phyllis, and I'm so glad to be here with Cindy and Gina and Paula. And I am currently the Next Gen Ministry Director at High Rock Church in Acton, Massachusetts, which is just right outside of Boston. And we are bracing for another snowstorm, I believe, that's supposed to come our way.
Oh, mercy.
And it's May, so, and I have not put away any of my snow stuff because I don't ever put it away until it's like middle of June. That way I don't bring the snow on, but clearly that's not working. And diversity is just something that's always been close to my heart since I was a kid, growing up as an Asian American, specifically a Korean American. It has really touched my life from day one. And so, I am all about trying to bring that conversation with church and where I work, because I feel like we as followers of Jesus, we need to be leading the conversation on this, on reconciliation. So that's like a huge passion of mine. And I especially really love working with kids and talking about diversity and racism and things like that. But the other thing that I love doing is finding the best hamburger in the world. Like my grandparents used to own a restaurant.
And amen.
Yeah, and she made the best hamburger. So I'm always like on the hunt for something that's similar to what my grandmother used to make. And
wow,
that's like my eternal search. So
that is amazing.
Eternal search.
Yeah,
That's
eternal
great.
search. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to have to dig down into
There's more
what
to that.
defines, there's more to that. What defines the best hamburger? And we also actually have a mutual friend who is always also on the hunt for the best hamburger, and that would be Kenny Conley. So, there may be that episode coming up soon, just the foodie episode.
Yep.
That would be perfect. In fact, if we do that, we need to put Phyllis and Kenny side by side. Phyllis, you've met Kenny.
Yes, I have.
Talk about a height difference.
Yes.
It would take 2 of Phyllis to
fill one.
To fill one Kenny Conley. The man's tall.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Paula, why don't you introduce yourself to the group?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I am Paula Dannielle, and I am so excited to be here. I am a longtime fan of Gina and Cindy, and now we are friends. So it's exciting to be here. Phyllis and I met a few months ago and enjoy each other on Facebook now. But I'm looking forward to this conversation. Diversity is a big topic that the church, I think, steers away from until crisis happens.
Oh, wow.
And it's hard to fix something when it's when it's broken and bleeding. Like we need to fix it while we're not in the middle of crisis. So when crisis happens, then there's something to stand on. So diversity is just this ongoing conversation in the church. And really, I always had like glimpses of the dangers of homogenous community, right? I've always seen the dangers of that. I grew up in Arizona. At the time, it was 3% African-American. I grew up in a very affluent, a very white neighborhood. And high school, my freshman year, there were protests because of the book Huck Finn and the N-word used in the book without there being appropriate conversation in regards to the history of the word. And so that was my first real awakening to race in America in 9th grade. And it's just kind of grown from there. And so now I work in Charlotte as a family ministry director at a predominantly white affluent church in Charlotte, North Carolina, which has its own share of racial issues and hot spots. So
Wow.
I'm glad to be here. This is something, there's that we need to talk about.
There's that. You know, I, as Cindy and I were talking about this and brainstorming the idea of having this conversation, it just didn't take us longer than a hot second before Paula and Phyllis's name, you know, bubbled to the surface. And, you know, for different reasons. Phyllis, I remember that moment at the next conference in January when we're sitting at a table, we're at a breakout session and we're sitting at a table having a table conversation, just a smaller group of us, right? Maybe 7-8 people sitting at that table. And the topic that we were talking about was diversity in the church. And I don't remember what question provoked it, but you were so brave, I thought. And I was just impressed when you said, you know what, I almost didn't come back today. Because when I walked in here last night, in fact, I don't want to share that. Do you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, share that, Phyllis.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good. When you stood up and said that at Next, I was like, go.
I was shaking
Let her keep the
on
microphone.
inside.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first night I got there, I walked in and there were no people of color in that room.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't handle it. It was just hard for me to be able to sit in that room and not know if I had an ally, and especially kind of in our current like politically charged culture and society right now. It's been a question that's always been hanging over my head. Not now, but even when I was a kid, like, could this have something to do with the way that I look on the outside or that? And then also just not knowing like who was a safe person that I could be around. And I know by experience that, you know, just because you call yourself Christian, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but just because you call yourself a Christian doesn't make you a safe person.
That's right.
You could be really dangerous and hurtful, and your theology could dictate something totally different than what I may think Jesus really stood for and what I think Jesus was calling us to be like to each other.
Wow.
And so I think that I was talking with my husband that night after everything was over, and I was like, I don't know if I should go back the next day, because if it was going to continue to be like this, then I just didn't know. But as the night wore on, there were more people of color who were kind of coming into the room, including one other Asian person who was in the room also. And then I kind of was like, okay, I can let my guard down a little bit, but I just felt frustrated because everybody on stage also was white. And I was like, what's happening here? Like, what's going on? I thought we'd made some steps forward, but it just didn't feel that way to me. And then I also just wasn't sure, is the rest of this time that I'm going to be with these people, will it be a safe space, a space where I feel like I'm not going to be threatened or hurt or like misunderstood, or, you know, all these other questions that I had. So I don't know what it was, but I just have to say, you know, something prompted and I had to stand up and say something, because I was like, nobody's going to say anything.
We are so grateful you did. Yes, we are so grateful you did. And just to clarify something you said earlier, you said, I'm not sure if I could say this. The reason why we're having this conversation is so we can say the things we're not sure we could say, you know?
Yeah.
And so please feel free. You know, so here's where I'm going to share ignorance. And this is where, Phyllis, you and I are still getting to know each other. Paula, thank God for Paula. Paula is that friend who has given me space to say really dumb things and ask really dumb questions, you know, and her heart to just teach and kind of pull the curtain back and allow me to see, you know, as a white woman who has grown up in predominantly, you know, bland cultures, like the majority of the neighborhoods and communities that I grew up in, I was always in the majority, never in the minority. And so never knew what that felt like. And when you shared that, Phyllis, what struck me in the moment was it never would have occurred to me that a light-skinned Asian woman would not identify more with me than she would with a dark-skinned African-American, right?
Yeah, it didn't occur to me either. And so,
Right.
Phyllis, I was like shocked when you stood up and said that. I was like, oh wow, because I think there is this conversation, this part of the conversation that likes to paint race as a completely black or white issue, right?
Yep.
So when we say diversity, we say, well, are there black people in the room and are there white people in the room?
Yeah.
And now we're diverse. Voila. Like,
Right.
and I think you made a good point. Like, that is not what diversity means. It just means, no, now you're black and white. Like, that's not the
Right.
total
Yeah.
picture. And so even when you said your comment at Next, I was like, okay, I didn't know that it went, you know, that you would feel that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, and part of it I think has to do a lot with my own past experiences, because I think if you were to ask maybe another Asian person, they might not respond in the same way. They might feel really comfortable in that situation, but I didn't, because I've had instances where, you know, rocks were thrown at me, I was called names, and it's just, that's always there. I always carry those things with me.
Yeah.
And then I also understand that just because I am, you know, we've been typecasted as a model minority, that just because I'm Asian American, there are some privileges that I get afforded that definitely Black and brown people do not.
Yeah.
And Indigenous people do not. But man, after this COVID thing hit, I was like, I just realized once again, no, I'm always going to be other. I look different on the outside. There is no, you cannot, people always ask me, where are you from? And if I tell them I'm from Boston, they're like, no. Where are you really from? And I was like, no, I really am from Boston.
No,
Like,
really?
like, really, I'm from here. And so when that othering happens, when I am always seen as a foreigner, I know that even in my own country where I was born, I'm not recognized as as an American. I'm recognized as a foreigner. And, you know, the thing that really opened my eyes was last year, I went to Korea, and it was a big family trip, and it was so fun. And we had such a great time. And can I tell you that every white person that I saw on the street, I smiled real big, because I was like, they might be from America. And I was like, oh, there's another American here on the street.
Yeah.
But then I started to realize, when they look at me, they're like, that's just another Korean person walking on the street in Korea.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, my own personal definition of what American is, in my mind, is white. And it is not even me, who I am born here. I am American. I've always been a US citizen. And I don't think of myself as an American. I think of people who are white as American.
Right.
And that just rocked my world. And I had to sit with that for a minute, because
that's powerful.
I think that really informed the fact that, oh man, that's why I feel this perpetual foreignerness, because I myself don't see myself as an American. And so other people that see me, I know that they definitely do not see me as an American.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Such a good perspective.
That is.
You know, so I grew up in Oregon, and I would say Oregon obviously is as far away from the South and any racial tension as you can get, especially when I was growing up in the 60s and 70s.
Come on, Cindy.
Come on. Own it.
Yeah.
Own it. That's right.
But so I never saw it. We didn't talk about it because it just wasn't part of our world. And so I grew up, and I would say naively, thinking all people are people. All people are people. And so grow up, get married, all things change. And I ended up, you know, in a divorce and meeting a man who lived in New Mexico. So he moved us to New Mexico, where all of a sudden I did become part of the minority. Because there's, you know, it's mostly indigenous people and people of Spanish background or Mexican background. And I didn't feel it as much as my daughter did. My daughter was a freshman in high school, and she just could not, she was on the outside. So the only thing that I personally can relate division to is my femaleness. When I walk into a meeting and I'm the only woman. But I'm with Gina, Phyllis, when you made that comment, I sat there, I remember right where you were to my left. And I listened to you, and it never occurred to me. It never occurred to me that there wasn't anybody else in the room that looked like you.
Right.
And it reminded me at a larger scale how important it is for us to fight for this.
Yeah.
Because everybody, especially in the church, everybody needs to see someone like
That's
them.
right. That's right. Yep. That's right.
Yeah. The comment and what you shared, Phyllis, just brought the concept into sharper focus for me, you know, personally. And of course, I've had the benefit of the past. Has it been a year, Paula, that we've kind of grown close?
Yeah.
It's been about a year.
It's been a year. About a year.
Yeah. Wow. Because I'm making that face because
what a year.
We've walked through a bit. What a year.
We've walked through a lot in a year.
But it was, you know, hearing that brought a lot of these conversations that Paula and I have had, you know, over the past year into sharper focus. And Paula, you said this at the beginning when you were introducing yourself, that was powerful, and I'm gonna mess it up. But you said the church needs to have a louder voice in this. I think it is what I heard. But this is a hard thing to address when we're in crisis.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I would say we're in crisis now.
Yeah. I would say we're in crisis now, and it is a hard thing to address because people's emotions are heightened when you're in crisis, and you think differently when your emotions are heightened. Yeah. That's why you don't make long-term decisions when your emotions are high, because we know physiologically people think differently, right? There's an emotive response. And so it's very difficult to get cognitive responses and behavioral change when the emotions are taking over everything. And so I think, I don't want to say these horrible events in our nation remind us how far we have to go, but the conversation needs to happen when we're not in the midst of it. So that people can change their mind and thus change their behavior.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
It reminds me, you know, I've as a result of the year that we've had, and that I've been going through some counseling lately, and my therapist walked me through kind of this visual picture of you know, of that whole decision making process in crisis. Right. This was the most clarifying thing I'd heard. She said it's like you got your executive thinking, you know. You have your executive thinking, you have your emotions, and then you have your fight or flight. And basically, when you're in crisis, in normal life, your executive thinker has the steering wheel and is driving. You know, but in crisis, the executive part of your brain hands the steering wheel over to fight or flight. Now who's in charge? Now who's driving? So based on what you said, that's all. As I'm hearing that, all I'm hearing is we're right now. Fight or flight's got the steering wheel. You know, and we're just responding to the scenario.
We're responding to the scenario. I talked to a friend earlier today, and I said, I wonder if our response, our meaning America at large, if America's response would be different if this happened during the week of an election. If this situation happened during the week of an election, would people vote differently? Because what we have going on in Georgia is symptomatic of a system that has been voted into place over and over and over again. The men who killed Ahmaud literally are in picture with a governor who just stole the election. So this is a symptom of a bigger problem that we forget about, because the symptom is not evident and active when we can deal with the system. The symptom is gone. And so it's like having allergies and you don't remember to take your allergy medicine until the pollen shows up. When everybody knows you start allergy medicine in February, late January, if you have bad allergies. You don't wait until your top car turns green. But that's what America does. We sit around and we wait, and then we forget. And then when we have an opportunity to make systemic change so the symptoms aren't the same, we don't do it. And then we say, oh, we're sorry.
And I just want to add to what Paula was saying real quick, is that, you know, this is our history. This is the history of the United States. Like from day one, these problems have been in place. And even to this day, in our Constitution, we still have not repealed slavery. Like it's still there in our Constitution. So it is like deep rooted. And I really like that, you know, what you were saying, Paula, is that, we cannot be just reacting just when we are in crisis. We got to be doing it all the time in in little chunks, because it has happened over hundreds of years. So to undo it, it's going to, you know, take a lot of time. It's not going to happen overnight. And there's not going to be one catalyst moment that is going to push us over to that edge. It has to be, you know, over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are the conversations that we need to enter into? How can we begin to be proactive about this? I was listening to an IG, what's it called, a movie or whatever, that Carlos Whitaker posted yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw it.
I haven't seen it.
Past it. I haven't watched
but
it.
But he was just talking about, hey, look, here are the things that you can do. And one of the things that he said was almost the same, but he said, look, don't be about just these big things.
Oh, that's good.
Be about when you see an injustice, even on a small level, in your own circle, enter into that conversation. And man, I appreciated that, because sometimes it can feel like it's so big, and does my voice even matter? Right? And I mean, like, I live in a state and I'm at a church that's predominantly brown. We're predominantly Latino. And so that I see and I hear, and I'm so sensitive now to it, comments about the Latino community, comments about, certain lifestyles or whatever. And I'm super sensitive to it. So that gave me permission to enter into conversations like that. But I'd love to hear from you, because I am not pretending to know. I feel like if I could say one thing for not all white people, but I'm just going to represent myself as a white person. I feel like I'm afraid to mess it up. I'm afraid to mess the conversation up, because I don't want to hurt you, and I don't want to misrepresent you, but I also don't want to ignore it. And so it does feel like there's this tension sometimes. So these kind of conversations, man, I love, because we can just, number one, we're friends.
Yeah.
Number two, I love you both. And there's a certain amount of grace back and forth. And so, anyway, help us with what we can do and I would say as the white community, but also as the Christian community.
Right.
Yeah. I think you said so many important things, Cindy. Number one, the sensitivity is there because that is the life you live in every day.
Right.
So part of it, and we cannot overstress this enough, is who you are in community with. Is who you are. Christianity has said since the beginning of time, like, we don't forsake the gathering of ourselves together, iron sharpens iron, all this stuff. Well, I would say the same is true about race. Like, I would say that the community you are with influences how you think. And so when you're with a community that looks like you, thinks like you, everything in your life is the same, then that doesn't bring any new perspective or allows us to challenge our own perspectives with this conversation. And so, for example, like, I think one of the reasons that white America, especially white allies, like real allies, not, I'm sorry in the comments, but I won't post it on my social media page because I got some of them too, that I'm getting ready to go ahead and block because they bothering me right now. Let me take a sip so I can calm down. Listen, this foolishness. I'm over this behind the curtain ally foolishness. But real white allies step out to have conversations with people of color so that they can learn and that they can get it right, and that they can understand and grow and all these things. People of color need to be willing to have those conversations back. And this is part of the tension, is because the conversation for people of color is hard and it's uncomfortable, and it starts with us having to say, okay, maybe they are genuine, and give the benefit of the doubt. But when the history is what it has been, so few people, and I don't want to villainize people of color, but so few people of color don't have it in them to do that. They just don't have the bandwidth. And so I do, but this is a calling I willingly stepped into. This is an area of what God has called my life to mean that I've willingly stepped into. But I have other colleagues of color and pastors of color who are like, nah, tell them go read a book. I don't want to have no more conversations. Like, it just, and so having people close to you changes that. But when we're close, because I can give you the benefit of the doubt, I don't have to second guess your motives. Gina is funny because Gina always says, okay, so maybe I have a dumb question. I have told her 1,000 times, there are no dumb questions when she and I are talking, right? There are no dumb, ask me whatever you want. We've talked about it all. We'll keep talking. And I've asked her some. Yep. I've asked her something. Do white people do this?
Right. Yeah. One of my favorites.
Does this happen in your house? Like, so.
I want to know those questions.
They're the best polos ever.
So, but we're friends.
Yeah.
We're friends. And there are things you can do with your friends that you cannot do with your acquaintances, that you cannot do with your colleagues. And so I think what the best thing for America to hear is, who is your friend that doesn't look like you? Who is the friend that will loan you money that doesn't look like you? Who's a friend that's going to help you move that doesn't look like you? Those are friends. Not who can you call in the middle of the night when life is chaotic and cry with? Because that's a friend. That's the person that needs to be a different color of you, because that's the person you'll be able to have these honest conversations with.
Yeah,
So
totally.
So true.
So the conversations have to happen, because when my friends of different races go to the ballot box, and I keep coming back to voting, because everything in America comes down to voting, especially our local elections that we don't give enough power to, enough credence to.
Right.
I want them to see my face before they vote to put a DA in office. Again, I want them to see my face. I want them to think about what that DA would do if I was gunned down while I was jogging. They're not going to do that if they're removed from me. The 2,000 followers on Facebook, they're not going to do that. But Gina will do that. Gina knows me. I'm real to her. Cindy will do. So it's about real relationship that I think moves the needle.
That's so good.
I totally agree with that. I think you got to widen your circle and make those intentional relationships happen. And I, just like Paula, I too feel really called. Like, since I was a kid, I feel like this was part of God's calling for my life. And so I am happy to do that. But there are a lot of other people who they don't want to talk about it, and they're tired, and it's hard. And I get that. And so I think it really is on people like us who are called to do this, to do this hard work and to have these hard conversations. But on the other side of that, there's so many books and resources that are out there. And so I always ask my white friends, go and do some of that work before you come and have a conversation with me, because sometimes that can help inform the conversation and also guide the conversation. So, and I love like Latasha Morrison, who does the Be the Bridge group. She has some great resources and a book. And there's even Bible studies, and I've been a part of one of those, and that has prompted some really interesting discussions among people who normally wouldn't get together and talk together. So there's just, I could give you like a whole list of resources, but also
I'd love those, because then we'll put them wherever we put them when we figure this whole thing out.
But I mean, if like reading books is not your thing, like, go watch on Netflix, go watch When They See Us, go watch 13th, go watch that movie Just Mercy. There's a book, but there's also a movie. Like, it will just open your eyes and prompt the questions that you can go and have those kinds of conversations with, especially with friends that are of color, and you can just ask them, like, I didn't even know about this. And there's just so much history out there that we don't even know about, that's not taught in school. But there's so much information out there where you can go and find that out and learn about it. And that way you're informed, and you're coming into that conversation being like, I didn't know about this. Can we talk more about this? Or has your family ever encountered something like this? That was true for me when about Japanese internment. So I grew up in Seattle, and my neighbor right across the street, he had been living there for a long time, and his family was part of that Japanese internment. And I learned so much from him. And that was a part of history that I didn't really much about in school, but I learned so much from him about that and what that was like. And it was first-hand account, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a part of our, I'm sorry. It's a part of our history that, that we don't hear much about.
Right.
But Phyllis, like you, growing up in the Pacific Northwest, that's where a lot of the internment was, because that's where a large population of Japanese American and Asian American people lived. And man, I just want to say yes, yes, and yes.
Mm.
I think not only by watching or reading and making yourself open to learning about these things from our history,
Mm.
it also does something to your heart.
Yeah.
It changes, it tenderizes your heart. And because once you see stuff like that, once you read about stuff like that, or you watch like Just Mercy,
Yes.
I read the book several years ago when it first came out, and we just watched the documentary just recently. Actually, no, we watched Brian Stevenson's documentary.
Okay.
We haven't watched Just Mercy yet, but if your heart isn't changed after watching something like that and realizing the plight of people because of the difference of their skin or the difference of their gender or whatever it is, then there's something even systemically deeper within you, I would say, right? I'd love to pivot just a little bit, because, you know, when we're recording this, we in Colorado are in like week 9 of shelter at home because of COVID-19. There may be people in the future that stumble across this on YouTube and watch it and go, oh yeah, remember COVID-19? One of the things, but one of the things that's been interesting, and Phyllis, I'd love for you to talk about this a little bit, but I think, Paula, we're going to talk with you too, because this is affecting people of different races and minorities in different ways. This has been almost like flipping time back to internment days, if I can use such strong language, for Asian Americans. Talk to us a little bit about, I'll just say it, the China virus. That it has been labeled as, and what that's done in your community, the people of Asian descent.
I mean, there have been, as like a couple weeks ago, I think it was reported, there's been over thousands of incidents of racism towards Asian Americans, because people have been using the term China virus and whatnot to label COVID-19. And it's like or you're wearing a mask, or you just look Asian and you're just sitting there and you're literally not doing anything, just minding your own business, and people will shout at you, spit at you, and, you know, try to harm you. There have been a couple people who have been, you know, hurt like in serious ways and killed because of that. And it just sucks. And so for me personally, you know, when this whole thing first started, it was hard to go outside because sometimes I would encounter that and I don't know what the intention was of the other person, but all I know is that they made me feel like I had some terrible thing, and so they needed to stay far away from me. And it just made me then not want to go outside. I worry that when our family takes walks along the street, that someone driving by or walking by will say something, and if my daughter is with me, you know, what is that toll going to be on her? Same with my mom, who's still living out in Seattle, my brother who's in New Jersey and their family, and just kind of all over the United States this is happening. It's not just in my neck of the woods, but it's everywhere. And so I hate that feeling that I feel like I can't go outside and just do something. And so there have been moments early on where I was like, should I wear a mask? Maybe I shouldn't wear a mask, because if I wear a mask, people are going to think that I have the coronavirus, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. Now it's been a little bit better because everyone is supposed to be wearing a mask here in Massachusetts, but there is still that, like, you know, I'm like, can they tell that I'm Asian when I'm wearing a mask? So if I have my sunglasses on, can they tell that I'm Asian? Like, I literally go through that thought all the time.
Right.
Like before I go out, it's like, okay, am I dressed a certain way? Like, do I have my phone? And like, is there so much, like, I just have to have all of this on guard when I go outside. And so that part to me has been like crazy, that because of the way that I look on the outside, I'm easily identifiable as to being of an Asian descent. And I'm not from China. And I have not traveled to China, you know, and that's frequently the first question that people have asked is like, have you been to China? And I was like, I haven't. Like, I've been here.
Wow.
No, have you?
Right.
I'm like, well, have you tried?
Right.
And so like early on, that was like the first question you'd get asked, you know, and I know that that's like supposed to be a routine question to ask, but I'm like, I think the virus was other places too. And who knows where it really like, you know, so in any case, I was just thinking about that, especially in light of what happened this past week with the video that came out with Ahmaud. And I was like, Black and brown people do everyday things all the time. And when they go outside of the door or even stay in their homes, they have to worry that they're going to be killed.
That's right.
And I just have a small taste of that. And my heart was just broken. And I was like, how could I, as an Asian American, as a person of color who's experiencing this, how could I not identify with my Black and brown brothers and sisters? And how could I not stand up and say something? Like, that just broke me, because I'm like, I can't imagine having to prep your kids to talk about what it's going to be like when you get pulled over by the police. Not if, but when
it happens.
And what that kind of life is like. And you know, we talk a lot about how we shouldn't talk about these things to our children. And I'm like, listen, Black and brown families have to talk about it from when their kids are little.
You better.
To prepare. And I was like, we don't say, oh, they're too young for that. We're like, this is going to save your life. So then I think for the rest of us, we ought to have the same kinds of conversations with our kids about what that is like. And then when that situation comes up, what should you do to stand up for your friend, or to stand up for that stranger that God has made in his image? Like, you got to do this. So that, anyway, I'm going to keep on getting riled up here, but
no, it's so good.
I think that is so important, that it starts young, and we got to like instill that in our kids and have those hard conversations with them, because I know that, you know, my Black brothers and sisters are having that conversation with their kids.
Very early. My kids knew in elementary school that if a police officer ever talks to them, they are not to talk to a police officer without their parent and an attorney, period. I don't care. I don't care if we just want to help you. I don't care. Like, from elementary school, we don't do officer friendly in my house when they come with questions. We can do and my girls have a TikTok with an officer that's at church, and you know, and they're you know, but if they get to asking questions, I need my mother and I need an attorney. And when the twins turned 18, I said, okay, now you have one question. I need an attorney. We're not talking about nothing. I want an attorney. And so, yeah, you're right. Those questions those conversations start very early, Phyllis. Very early.
It's interesting. It goes back to that foundation of trust, right? You know, just digesting the news about Ahmaud, watching the video, and just kind of running through the questions, like trying to fill in the gaps, right? In this story, how long did he run? At what point did he realize he was being followed? What was about his demeanor that made these men believe that he fit, you know, the bill for a burglar, whatever, you know, the case may, whatever their rationale was. And I remember, you know, in the course of the conversation, somebody said, did he not have a cell phone on him? Why didn't he call 911? And I was like, well, I know, I'm watching your face drop, Paula. I'm watching your face drop, because my first thought was that implies a trust in an authority that he probably has no trust in.
That's right. That's right.
In
And
fact,
why
one
should
of the
he
men
have
with a
to?
shotgun was a former
Yes.
sheriff's deputy, police
right.
officer, something like that. Right.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
so again, it goes back to that foundation of trust. And I think I was thinking about this earlier as we were talking about what can we do. Cindy asked the question, what can we do? And Phyllis, we got to get in a link to all those things you referenced. I know, you know, one of the books that I'm reading right now, slower than I should be, but I am reading it, Paula, is Right Color, Wrong Culture.
Yes, that's a hard book to read, though. It took me a long time to read it too.
But
it took
I'm
me a
loving
long
it.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing that it reminds me of is that it is not enough. So awareness is happening now. I think I would suggest to a greater degree now than it has in the past. Awareness is a good thing, but awareness is not enough. You know. And I don't think that we should, I think that we as a, you know, putting myself in the, you know, white category, I think the wrong answer, wrong decision is to say to a person of color to say, hey, I'm here, come be my friend.
No, that's not the right thing to say.
Not
That is
the
the
right
wrong
thing.
thing to say. You're right. You're right. That is
think
the wrong thing to say.
Am I right in that the onus is on us?
Yes.
The onus is on us to cross the street and say, I'm interested in you.
Yeah.
Not to say, tell me your whole life story, because we've not built that trust.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we don't have that right.
Right.
Like Phyllis said, do some homework, learn, educate yourself. But at the same time, I know Paula and you and I have had this conversation around, you know, there are more Black people willing to go to a white church to try to bridge the gap.
That's
than white people to go to a Black church to try to bridge the gap. You know?
Yeah.
And I think we're hitting some fatigue there, and it's time for that to change.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, what, as we kind of wrap up, this has been so rich. What's the last 10% that you would offer each of you? Because we could talk about this for a long time.
Yeah. We really could. I was just sitting here thinking, I don't think Paula ever holds back 10%. I'm going to say.
You see how long that pause was, right?
I'm going to say no 10. How about the final 2%? Give me the final 2% that you might have held back, Paula.
Just like, I do believe in the reality of a statement Reggie Joyner started saying a few years ago is proximity changes perspective.
Oh, it's so good.
Proximity changes perspective. Proximity on a daily basis. And the perspective that somebody else's life matters just as much as yours.
100%.
If you would not want somebody to do that to you, then why are you doing it to somebody else? If you would not want somebody to call the police on you for having a barbecue in the park, why would you do that to somebody else?
Yeah.
If you would not want the police to handcuff your 5-year-old in kindergarten for having a temper tantrum, why do you think that's okay for a police officer to do that to somebody else's child? I think when we start to put ourselves in the shoes of other people and realize that race does have privilege. That's another thing. Like, forget the whole conversation of there's not privilege because I'm white. And I can't even believe how there are still people who feel that way with everything that goes on. But there is. We can just look at there. You will never see. I saw a meme. You will never see a group of African-American men with semi-automatic rifles standing in front of a governmental building with masks on and it be okay. You will never see that. So we can get past the whole there's not privilege. But would I want to be treated that way? And if we can get to that conversation, to love our neighbor as we love ourselves for real, and that might be the problem. Because they're not neighbors. Maybe that's the problem. They're not really neighbors.
They're not neighbors, yeah.
They're not neighbors. They're other. And so if we can get to that, I think our country will continue to move forward. But I do think seeing is half the battle, and that's why the civil rights movement was so powerful, because they made a point of making the injustice and the violence seen to penetrate people's psyche. That's unfortunate, but it seems to be what has to happen.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, I think, this morning I was doing a Facebook Live with our families from our church, and the thing that they were supposed to do today is to read Genesis 1:26 and Psalm 139:14, and to say to each other that God made you and God loves you. And the thing in Genesis 1:26 is it says that God made humankind in his image.
Yes.
And it's not about the individual that was made in God's image, but it is the collective of the humankind
I love it.
that was made in God's image.
That's
And
good.
so any part of God's image that's hurting or is killed or damaged in any way, it affects all of us.
Yep.
Yes.
And not just that one part, and it affects the entire image of God.
Yes.
And that's why I really am like, man, the church really needs to get on the ball about opening these kinds of discussions and having these really hard conversations and leading that, because we believe that no matter what denomination you are or what part of you come from, what it says in the Bible is that humankind was made in God's image. So if that is the case, then why are we not loving all of humankind? Why are we being selective about who we love and who we care for, who has certain rights and who doesn't? And that's like a core value that we teach our kids. Well, I think we as adults, man, we need to hear that too and be reminded about that as well.
Sure.
And then I think the other part of it is that this is not just a black and white thing.
That's right.
And Paula, I'm going to quote you because I was like, this is so good, but you wrote this on your Facebook, and I wrote it down, and I'm going to keep this. It says, racial oppression has never been overcome by one racial side. It has always taken the multiracial voice to move the cause of justice forward. Racial equality is not a fight between the white and black church. It is a fight between those who follow the cause of the gospel against oppression over the gospel of privilege and ignorance. Amen to that.
Amen.
Wow.
That is so true. We have to work together to move this needle on justice. And just as God, we are that one image, in God's image, the same goes for all of God's work. We got to work together to do that. And thank you so much for writing that, Paula, because that is a word. And that is something that I've been sharing widely and telling everyone. I was like, we got to get together and work together.
Love it.
Oh. Wow.
So good. That's
Man,
a
this has been
great
good conversation.
This has been a great conversation.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
We're having it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I almost feel like we're on holy ground, and I don't want to step off of holy ground.
It's true.
If there's a comma there, it's like part of holy ground is being who we are.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
so we want people to know who you guys are too. So we just like to finish each one of our episodes with just some lightning round questions. Don't be scared.
They're easy.
all right.
They're easy.
Who's going to go
Yeah.
first?
Yeah. So here's the first one, and we'll
Paper, rock,
just throw them. Yeah, right. I'm going to throw them out there for both of you to answer.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just answer one question, and you can both answer it.
Perfect.
First question is favorite movie of all time.
Breaking Two.
Breaking Two. I love
Electric
it.
Boogaloo.
I'm gonna have to. I don't think I've watched that. I have to add that. I'm gonna have to say Joy Luck
Never
Club.
seen that. Say that again.
Joy Luck Club. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I could
Oh,
literally
yes.
quote that movie, the entire movie. So
Wow.
yeah, it's probably my all-time.
That's a good one.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Are you ready, Gina, with the next one?
I'm ready. Okay, tell us what your favorite meal is.
Oh my gosh, just one?
What?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah,
many.
one.
Okay, I'll have ribs any day of the week.
Oh yeah.
For real.
Ribs any day of the week.
That sounds so good.
That sounds
I would
good.
have steak and probably a baked potato with like everything on it.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yes,
Gina's.
Phyllis.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
That's
It is
Gina's.
steak.
Yes. Yes.
I
That's
am
right.
the only fish person here. I can see that.
I'll meet you on catfish.
Yeah.
I got you. And some stuffed salmon. I'll
Oh,
hang with
stuffed
you.
salmon
Can
is
we do
good,
stuffed
yeah.
salmon?
Except,
Yeah,
please.
salmon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no! So we all need to go visit Paula because there's a restaurant there in North Carolina. Where'd you take
So
us?
good.
Oh my word.
Cowfish.
Yes. We have to do that
Yes.
one again.
Cowfish.
Cowfish. That is my place.
Cowfish.
It is an
Yeah.
Asian American fusion thing. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. I think I ate my weight in whatever was on the table. It's pretty
So
amazing.
good.
All right, next question,
Okay.
Cindy.
Okay, here's the next one. What's on the nightstand? Or, AKA, what are you reading right now?
Okay.
Oh.
This one should-
So my husband always accuses me that I only have I never have any fun books that I read. I only read serious books.
Right.
So what
Same.
I'm reading right now it's called Healing Racial Trauma by Sheila Wise Rowe. It's really good.
I love
But
it.
it's actually really serious.
Yeah.
Love it.
But I'm
You're in
also
good company.
looking through this because I read a lot of kids books too. So it's called The Gospel in Color. There's a kids version and a parents version, and it
Ooh.
talks about the theology of racial reconciliation.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and you have to order it from the site wearepatrol.com, but you can order like a
link to that.
2 books or just just one.
Oh, I need to look into those.
And then this is my other book that I'm trying to read before I read it with my daughter.
I've heard about that
About
series.
racism. Yeah.
It was on Orange Conference, right? That whole
I
series.
didn't even know it was on there. I had someone else had been reading it with their kids,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, I got to check it out because they have one on body image and anxiety and a whole bunch of other topics.
Lots.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
I'm just trying to read through those so I can read it together with my kids. So
What
Lots
a
and lots
great
and
idea. I
lots.
love that.
that's what's on my
awesome.
nightstand.
Y'all, I'm not
Love it.
reading anything on my nightstand right now. I have a whole ton of books. I love hardback books. I have a few electronic books, but I'm having a problem getting through a book.
Mm-hmm.
So it's chapters of books,
Oh.
depending on how I feel that
That's
day.
okay.
There is a
No,
book.
that
Horrible.
is okay.
The book that I'm reading depends on where I'm sitting in the house right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
For
how
real.
many different books I have
Like
going.
everywhere. Yeah.
It's not
for
great.
real.
That is so true.
It drives
so true.
Kyle
I
crazy.
just finished, I will tell you, last week I just finished a book called Let Us Pray. It's not in print anymore, but it is digital, PREY. And it talks about the narcissistic propensity and nature and danger of the pastorate.
Wow.
It's called Let Us Pray.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good.
Whoa, what
Yeah.
did you just drop right there?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
write
love
that
it.
down.
Holy
Let Us
cow.
I need to
Pray,
read that book.
PREY. It is
Whoa.
good.
I
It is
need to
good.
read that book.
Yep.
There's that.
Dang.
Yeah, there's that, right?
There's that.
There
That's
we
a whole
go.
nother episode.
There's that.
Isn't
Yeah.
it?
There's that.
Finished
Isn't
that
it?
last week.
Oh, we keep adding to the list. This is going to be more than 8 episodes.
I know.
All right. Okay, ready for the next question?
Yeah.
What is the most surprising thing about you that people don't know?
I'm pretty much an open book. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something. There's always something.
Something people don't know.
Like, here's mine. I shared
Okay.
this in our very first opening. And this is just a dumb thing, right? So don't go too deep with this.
There you go.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I mean, like mine was, people don't know that both of my children, biological children, were scheduled around water skiing.
I see your priorities.
Right.
Exactly.
So
At least our water
glad
skiing
that-
season.
I mean, did you
know.
see the picture I posted yesterday with my baby? That was my first
No.
baby. I was in my bathing suit, guys.
That's impressive.
Okay. So it could be something like that.
All right. People do not know that I have a thing for pillows and blankets.
Oh, see?
Really?
I have about 8 pillows on my bed
Yep.
and 3 different blankets. See, Gina? And like 3 different blankets, and not include, so a comforter and then 3 different blankets.
Okay.
It's a thing. It's a little a lot.
It's a little lot.
It's extra. We love extra.
Yeah.
I like that. I like
We
that.
are
I
extra.
have a couple extra blankets on my bed too, but
Mm.
I think maybe people don't know about me is that sometimes if we go out to dinner and then when I get home, I open up my jar of kimchi and I'll eat some kimchi to like finish off the night.
I love kimchi.
I'm like basically turning into like my mom and my grandma, but like if we don't go out for Asian food, like I literally will come home.
You're gonna have some
Wow.
There, yeah.
before the end of the night. That is the best.
There you go.
There you go. That's a good one.
Awesome. I love that so
that
much.
is good.
Now everybody knows my
good.
secrets, but
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right.
Right.
Now I want kimchi.
We're just visualizing Phyllis going home going,
Yeah.
Opening up the jar.
Like, hey, but
yeah, my husband's always like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I have to do this.
kimchi.
Has to be done."
right.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, ready for the next one?
Come
We'll
on.
do 2 more. We'll do 2 more.
Mhm.
The last series that you binged on.
Law and Order SVU.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's me all day. I mean, I'm a binge series watcher. I have. Okay, so here's another thing people don't know. I'm like, I'm a high control person. And so, like, I have to do things in a certain order. So if I watch Law and Order SVU, I can only watch it in the middle of the day because at 10 o'clock, I have to watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or Martin at 10 o'clock. It has to be at 10 o'clock.
Yes.
Will Smith all day long.
I'm a little bit of a control freak. Add that to the pillows and the blankets. Okay, just a little bit. What'd you binge watch, Phyllis?
The Office and this show called Itaewon Class, which was on Netflix. It's like a Korean drama. Yeah, it was like really progressive because they even had like a trans character on there and stuff. And like I was like, oh, this is new for Korean drama. So
Right.
yeah.
Wow.
So those are the last things that I binge watched. Yeah.
I heard
Awesome.
The Office needs to be watched so that to gain new ideas for like strategy and execution and stuff. I heard The Office is the show.
It is so good. But we also listen to the Office Ladies podcast.
Huh.
There's 2 women who are on the show that they do a podcast and they recap the episodes. So like I binge watch it and then I rewatch the episode that they're talking about in their podcast after I listen to the podcast. It's way too much Office.
That's a lot of Office.
granular. That's granular.
Yeah, that's like, yeah. It's like I like to dive deep.
Yeah.
Clearly. I kind of got that with the multiple books that all had the same theme. You know?
Yeah.
Dive deep.
Cracking
Wow.
something
That's
here.
awesome.
All right, final question. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Yep.
Do you have a tattoo?
No,
No, but I wish I had one.
I don't wish I had one.
Neither one of you have tattoos.
Oh.
Well, now we know what we're doing when we get together in
Ooh,
Colorado.
ooh. We can go get what is it called? Henna?
Oh, henna.
Yeah, we can go
temporary
do
tattoos?
that, or we can go get some sticker tattoos, but we're not doing no needle tattoos. We can-
Oh, is it a needle thing?
yeah, it's a needle thing. I'm not doing
Yeah,
that.
our middle son is like that. Our bookend
Oh,
kids,
yeah.
tattoos everywhere. Our
Oh.
middle kid, he doesn't like needles. He
I'm
does
the middle
not
baby.
have
We
a-
don't like it. We don't like it. Phyllis, why you don't have one?
I can't figure out what it is that I want. And then my husband is like, like 20, 30 years from now, it's not going to look the same.
And then
He's like, you have to choose wisely. So it's taken me a long time. Yeah.
It's placement.
Yeah,
Okay, so
placement,
this is our conversation. I told Gina this earlier this week. I said, when you're young, tattoos are bad. But when you're old, they're just bad. So you have to put them in the perfect placement.
Yep.
So that when you're old, they still look good. They still look
Yep.
bad.
they don't get saggy.
Yeah.
I love that, Cindy.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Exactly. So
It's bad.
Yeah.
if you guys have any ideas,
We'll pass them along.
yeah.
We'll
I
pass
can
them
help you out.
That's
I can help you out.
Sounds good.
along. Ladies, thank you so much.
Oh, this
for,
was amazing.
Ew.
just
Thanks
agreeing
This
to
is
have
really
dinner.
great.
We're just grateful
Yeah.
for your openness and your willingness
Yeah.
to trust us with this
Yeah.
conversation. It's not taken lightly. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
besides
you.
that, we just love you.
We do.
Oh, I
That
love
is true.
You guys are the
y'all.
best. I love you guys too.
Yay.
Yeah.
You
Love
guys are
hanging out
amazing.
with you guys.
Yeah.
So
Great.
thank you
Well,
too.
Cindy, you want to close us out?
Yeah. Thanks again for joining us for There's That. Because you know what, there are lots of conversations out there that we just need to have. Because at the end of the day, sometimes we just sit back and we go, well, there's that. And I don't know what we're going to do about that. I don't know how to talk about it. I don't know if it's even manageable. But in the words of Fred Rogers, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. And this is mentionable. So we're gonna talk about it and we're gonna work towards it. So you guys, thank you again so much for being with us for this very first episode of There's That.